திருமல யாத்திரை செல்ல வேண்டும் என் திருமலையப்பனை சேவிக்கவே.
ரமாரமண கோவிந்தா கோவிந்தா. சத்குரு மகாராஜ் கி ஜெய். நாராயணம் நமஸ்கிருத்ய நரஞ்சைவ நரோத்தமம் தேவீம் சரஸ்வதீம் வியாசம் ததோ ஜெயம் உதீரயேத். ஹரே ராமேதி கிருஷ்ணேதி நாம சங்கீர்த்தனம் சதா லோகக்ஷேமாய குர்வந்தம் பிரேமிகம் சத்குரும் பஜே. கலயே சுந்தராகாரம் சதைக பிரியதர்ஷனம் அஜ்ஞானநாசகம் தேவம் சத்குரும் முரளீதரம். முரளீமண்டிதகரகமலம் முனிஜனமோகனம் வியத்யஸ்தபாதம் வனமாலாதாரிணம் பிரேமபக்தமண்டல நித்யகீர்த்திதம் பிரேமிகவரதம் ஆශ්‍රயேகம். வினா வெங்கடேஷம் நநாதோ நநாதः சதா வெங்கடேஷம் ஸ்மராமி ஸ்மராமி. ஹரே வெங்கடேஷ பிரசீத பிரசீத பிரியம் வெங்கடேஷ பிரயச்ச பிரயச்ச. நாம சங்கீர்த்தனம் யஸ்ய சர்வ பாப பிரணாசனம் பிரணாமோ துக்கசமனஹ தன்னமாமி ஹரிம் பரம். சத்குரு மகாராஜ் கி ஜெய். ரமாரமண கோவிந்தா கோவிந்தா. With the boundless mercy of Aishwarya Srinivasa Perumal and by the causeless mercy of our beloved Guru Maharaj, we are embarking on this journey of Venkatesha Vaibhavam, and we have already crossed in this holy yatra the first lovely hill called Vrishabhadri. We saw in the past 2 weeks that Vrishabhadri got its name because of a asura. That's why in our Shastras, in our Bhagavata Dharma, especially in our Puranas and more specifically in Bhagavata Purana, there are no villains at all. Bhagavan accepts everybody and he gives them the same state of emancipation, or he gives the same state of liberation as a devotee when even an asura surrenders to Bhagavan in the last moment. That's the kripa of Bhagavan. That also shows the power, that also shows the greatness of Sharanagati. And our Srinivasa Perumal is called Sharvaloka Sharanyan, that he is the sole refuge for all the worlds at all times for everybody. And that was Vrishabhadri, a Vrishabhasura who tormented the rishis, yogis and munis who came and settled in that hill, in that 7 hills, which is the very embodiment of Adisesha. And at the moment when Bhagavan himself came and vanquished him, he surrendered to Bhagavan and he realized his folly, or rather Bhagavan wanted to accept him, and Bhagavan calls that as the greatness of that hill, Sanidhya, sanctity. Like in Vrindavanam, a snake, a very venomous snake called Kaliya, when he came just to seek refuge from his own enemy Garuda, just by Vasam, just by his very being in Vrindavana, he got the footprint of Krishna embedded on his head. What a bhagyam. That's why a great Vraja poetess called Gulab Saki, poetess means Kridayame Gopi. The Swarupa for all of us is a poetess only. We may have a physical body which has a different pronoun, but our real Swarupa is Gopi. And that Gopi called Gulab Saki says that this Kaliya got the highest bhagya of holding the lotus feet of Bhagavan on all his heads, just because of one fortune, which is Vrindavana Vasam. Just staying in Vrindavana for whatever reason had given that wonderful Kalingya this great fortune, isn't it? Likewise, Vrishabhasura, even though he did tormenting of all the sages and the rishis and the yogis in our Vrishabhadri, Bhagavan himself came, vanquished him and destroyed his body, but protected his soul by accepting the soul at his feet and giving him liberation. And Bhagavan very beautifully says, do you know what? This is because Evam mukundo vrishabhasya datvam varam varenyo antaradata deva divam yayo daitya varopi tasmat vadanti santo vrishabhachalam cha. Bhagavan gave Vrishabhasura the highest state of moksha, and he said, my dear son, it is because of the sanctity and the divinity of this hill that even in the last moment you wanted to surrender to me and you wanted to have my darshan, and in fact you had my darshan because of the sanctity of this hill. And the reason why we are repeating it is, that's the perspective we all have when we embark on a holy yatra. Otherwise it is only a yatra. It is not sightseeing, isn't it? It is actually our holy endeavor to employ our legs, our hands, our body in his service by traveling to his abode. And our Sri Andal says in Tamil, Sendru Nam Sevittal, that we are going to Bhagavan's abode. Many people say, why Bhagavan is everywhere? Bhagavan is in my puja room also. Why don't I do my worship there? We can. Why should I go to a Namadwaar? Well, this is the reason. The reason is Bhagavan has given feet now. Everything Bhagavan has bestowed on us, submitting it back, offering it back with love, dedication, in line with our scriptures, is what is called bhakti. Rishikam means this community of senses, sense organs like eyes, nose, tongue, etc., hands, feet, etc. How do we actually offer our eyes, nose, or the sense of smell, sense of sight, sense of listening, hearing, sense of taste, and speech, my locomotion, which is walking with my feet, and my various actions I do with my hand. How do I show bhakti towards Bhagavan? What is bhakti towards Bhagavan? Offering all these community, Karana Kaleyabaram, back to our Krishna. Rishikam, and the Lord of Rishikams is our Rishikesha, and bhakti means, Narada Maharshi says, offering all this back to Bhagavan. How do I offer my eyes to Bhagavan? By actually going for his darshan, by doing the darshan. Mat kar mokh tu hari bhajan ko maan re, nain diye darshan karne ko shravan diye sungaan re. Our Kabir Das Goswamiji says that bhajan, Hari bhajan means Hari bhakti. Bhaj is to adore, to worship, and to offer all these to Bhagavan. So how do I offer my eyes to Bhagavan? By darshana. How do I offer my ears, sense of hearing to Bhagavan? By listening. Kara, the hands are given for dhana. When we offer something to Perumal, when we offer something to the needy, I am offering my power of action back to Bhagavan. Ayyamum pichayum andanayum kaikati. And how do I offer my legs to Bhagavan? Sendrinam sevittal. That's the yatra. That's why we have legs to embark on a yatra. And that is the reason why when we go on a yatra, remember, my legs are all fortunate. They have been bestowed with the greatest fortune, for it has taken me to a place which exudes divinity. If you think there is divinity in a place, divinity will show itself completely. If you don't have any belief in that, divinity can just keep quiet like a witness. Bhakti is in bhava. And there are some places which are naturally exuding divinity, bubbling with divinity. And those are the Divyadesas. And for people outside India, the Divyadesas are the lovely temples. And for us in our satsang, our Divyadesas are the Namadwars, which has been blessed by our Guru Maharaj, which already has tremendous divinity exuding from there. And when we enter into that holy space, without distraction, without other unnecessary thoughts, then divinity will touch us. Divinity will interact with us. Bhagavan is pleased and he gives us that joy. And that is the reason why we undertake such a journey. And so our Bhagavan himself, out of his lotus lips, he himself says, this is the greatness of Vishabhadri, that an Asura could have my darshan, Asura could attain my feet, Asura could attain lasting peace. You see, that's the beauty, na? And then we go to the next hill. Out of the 7 hills, Vishabhadri, we just saw, we will go to the next hill, and that holy hill is called Narayanadri. We know that our Perumal, we already saw it in the earlier satsangs. Perumal is a very epitome of that name, is the embodiment of the divine name Narayana. So Narayanadri, did this hill actually get that name from Bhagavan's divine name itself? Yes and no. Narayanadri got that name because of a Muni called Narayana Muni. You see, his name was Narayana. The great Rishi's name was Narayana. And he came from a lovely lineage of a greater Rishi called Vikanasa Rishi. And so we call those people who come from the lineage of a great sage called Sri Vikanasa sage as Vaikanasas. You see, that's. And generally, I need to digress a little bit. When you go to Perumal temples, when you go to Vishnu temples, especially in India, which are ancient, they typically have one of these 2 types of agama or temple worship tradition. In Tamil Nadu, I am saying, or in Tamil Nadu and Andhra typically. The first type of agama pradishta, agama means a mode of worship, the scriptures which deal with how do we do worship to Bhagavan. We have Shiva agama, we have Vishnu, Vaishnava agamas, and of course we have agamas for Shaktam, etc. The typical 2, there are many more, there are typical 2 important long-standing traditions of worshipping Vishnu, worshipping our Narayana, is what is called as Pancharatra Agama, the Pancharatra method of worship, and we have what is called as a Vaikanasa. And our Srinivasa Perumal in Tirumala is worshipped through the mode of Vaikanasa mode of worship. Okay. So our Tirumala Srinivasa Perumal is worshipped in the mode of Vaikanasa, and the Pratishta, the installation of our Perumal in Tirupati is also in the lines of Vaikanasam. So why is it called Pancharatram and Vaikanasam? For those who are from India, who have a little understanding of Indian language, Pancharatram, the word itself suggests us what it means. It seems Bhagavan himself, why seems? Bhagavan himself revealed the way to worship him. Who else can tell us? You tell me. When a Mahatma goes to the home of a devotee who is not initiated much into the path of bhakti, the devotee wants to do the worship of that Mahatma who is visiting the home. And the devotee does not know. Out of tremendous grace of Mahatma, I don't know how we can even express this. Bhagavan, our Alvar says, Tam Perumai Ariyar. If you want to know the embodiment of humility, it has to be Perumal. It has to be Mahatmas. It has to be these great Guru Maharajas. They are very embodiment of humility. Yet, out of tremendous kripa, Bhagavan himself is announcing how to worship him. Just like how these Mahatmas who go to the house of these devotees who are not initiated into formal worship, yet they want to do formal worship. Mahatma himself, even though he is the very epitome of humility, tells that person, okay, bring a plate, bring some flowers, and this is how you do worship to himself. What to do? Only a devotee can understand this. Outside satsang people, what they talk, what they think is immaterial to me. But people who have tasted the beauty, the humility, the loveliness of Mahatma's Hridaya can appreciate the compassion when a Mahatma teaches a devotee how to worship him. When we understand that, we can also understand how Bhagavan, out of his tremendous compassion, wants to fulfill the desire of the devotee. The desire of the devotee is to worship him with devotion, and Bhagavan himself reveals it. Once it seems, Bhagavan revealed the way to worship in 5 days and 5 nights, especially 5 nights. So Pancha is 5, Ratri is night. So Pancha Ratram is actually the method of worship. Bhagavan himself announced to some rishis 5 nights consecutively. And whatever Bhagavan has announced, this rishis, they held it, they collected it, and they gave it to their shishyas, whose shishyas gave it to them, etc. Sishyaha, tat sishyai, prasishyaihi. And so now we have this wonderful agama called Pancharatra, way of worship. And when you go to all the Divyadesas near Nangur, our Swamiji has a lovely Patashala in Nangur. Nangur is a place near Sirgali. Sirgali is a very important place for people who are Vishnu devotees, because that's the place where one of the greatest Alvars, Tirumangai Alvar, the Alvar who came last, the Alvar who gave us more than 80 Divyadesams, songs for 80 Divyadesams, and almost half of it we wouldn't have got but for the Alvar. Some of the Divyadesams, some of the divine abodes of Vishnu was revealed by this Alvar. Almost half of the 80 was revealed only by Tirumangai Alvar. So, a great Alvar lived in that area, Sirgali. And he actually sang 11 lovely temples around Sirgali. The 11 Divyadesams in and around Nangur. One of his own songs must be thousands of years, 1,000 years at least, 1,500 years maybe before. He mentions that there was a Patashala there, and incidentally our Swamiji also opened a Patashala in Nangur. And in the physical world, he came to know of the Alvar's desire, or rather the Alvar's experience, that there was a Patashala only later. Mahatma's hearts are one and the same, isn't it? So we have a Patashala. Patashala means a small school, the traditional school, Gurukulam, where children who come from the tradition of worshipping Vishnu, Yandai Tandai, Tandai Ki Mundai, their father, their grandfather, their great-grandfather, all of them worshipped Vishnu. Those children are formally trained in this Pancharatra Agama. You see, some of you who would have been fortunate to travel in that area would have seen the Patashala. And also our Patashala's person would have taken you around the temples, the 11 temples, to tell you the greatness of Vishnu in each of the temples. Each of it is unique. Some temples is like Ranganatha, some temples he is sitting, in some temples he is Krishna himself. It's a unique experience. So if you come to Sirgali next time, I'm sure if you can contact any of our disciples of our beloved Guru Maharaj, they can guide you to take a proper tour. This is how you have to visit temples. Understand the history of the temple, understand the uniqueness of Perumal. To whom did this Perumal? Perumal means the Lord in the Garbhagraha, in the sanctum. He is called Perumal. The lovely deity in a temple is called Perumal in Tamil and in Vaishnava Paribhasha, Vaishnava's parlance. And so, we need to understand to whom did Perumal bestow his grace in form of revealing himself, and what is the tree associated with that? It's called Kshetra Vriksham. What is the divine water associated with the temple, and what are the wonderful songs composed, or rather revealed by Alvars related to the temple? All that we should know. Only then we can relish the temple. How did the Alvar melt his heart in the darshan of Perumal? You should know all that now. Only then we can relish a yatra. Otherwise I went, I saw. That is enough for our well-being. But for our experience, we need a little more. And that's Pancharatra. And now the second very important way of worship, mode of worship, is called Vaikanasa. There are some more. There is something called Prema Pradishta also. And this Vaikanasa mode of worship was revealed by Perumal, revealed by Bhagavan to a great sage called Vikanasa, sage Vikanasa or Vikanasar. And so the mode of worship was called Vaikanasa Agama, or mode of worship, method of worship, system of worship, scriptural system of worship is called Agama. And so, why I have told you all this as an introduction is, this Narayanadri is related to this sage Vikanasa. How? Vikanaso vipravara kadachit Narayano nama satam varishtaha Dvijati mukhyo atra tapaschakara Narayanasyaiva hi darshanartham. 13th sloka of our 36th chapter of Divyadesa Vaibhavam. Vaikanaso vipravaraha kadachit. There was once a great Vedic Pandit who came from the lineage of Vedic learning, and that Vipravaraha, the great Vedic Pandit, his name was Narayana. And so there is this Bhagavan Narayana and this sage Narayana. How do you differentiate? We will call Bhagavan Narayana as Narayana, and we will call sage Narayana as Narayana Muni. He came from the lineage of this great sage Vikanasa, you see, who got the Agama, who got the scriptural system of worship from Bhagavan himself. So, Vaikanaso vipravaraha kadachit Narayano nama satam varishtaha. And so he was a great sadhu also, one of the greatest of the sadhus. How do we know that? Because he came to this hill. Because he wanted to do penance to see Bhagavan and Bhagavan alone. And also because of his great lineage. Dvijadi mukhyo atra tapaschakara. He came down and did penance for darshanartham. He came here for the darshana, of whom? Narayanasyevahi. He wanted the darshana of Narayana and Narayana alone. He wouldn't be distracted by all the Deva darshana he might have got within a week of chanting Narayana Nama. He was not distracted by even other fruits like moksha. That is secondary. For me, darshanam. Darshanam dehi. All of them sing. Na? So he came only for virahaya kankshe. That I came here to have the darshan of you and you alone, and darshan alone of you. And so he was satam varishtaha. And then he is sitting in the second hill, which is going to be named Narayanadri, because this Narayana Muni came here, sat down and had this penance. He wanted to do penance there. And when a person comes to this holy hill, can he go without the darshan of Perumal? Bhagavan gave him the darshan. Narayanaha Shanka Sudarshanabhyam Alankritaha Kaustuba Kandarascha Varapradaha Kati Avalambay Hasto. Varapradaha, you have Varadahastam, and Kati Avalambita Hasto Dadau Paratma Nija Darshanam Cha. Bhagavan gave the darshan of himself to this great Mahatma. How? Narayana, he himself came, Shanka, the chakra, and then he had one Varadahasta. Varadahasta means showing the hasta which gives all the boons, and the hasta which gives the greatest boon, which is his feet. So the actual hand, hasta means hand, the hand which actually shows, this is where you actually this is where you surrender to. Mamekam sharanam braja. Go, hold on to my feet. It is showing the greatest vara, the greatest boon is Bhagavan's feet, na? Varadahasta. And then there is this hasta which is folded like this on the thighs. So just close to the hip. Kati avalambi hasto dadau paratma nijadarshanam cha. Bhagavan with his lotus eyes, lovely urdhva pundram, arched lovely eyebrows, sharp nose, red lips, shining, and cheeks which are like mirrors, lovely curly hair which is coming and kissing the cheeks of our Perumal, Makara Kundala Dharam, lovely kiritam, and neck like a conch, shankam. There is Kaustubam in it, and there is Vanamala, and then in the Vakshasthala we have Srivatsa, where our Sri Devi herself is having the permanent abode. Broad chest, smooth chest, and a lovely flat, lovely stomach, Valgu Veram, and then Padmanabham, and he had a wonderful Mekhala, the golden Mekhala in his hips, and lovely Pitambaram, shining yellow Pitambaram, Kati Hastam, Varada Hastam, and wonderful Nupuram, wonderful tinklets in his feet, lotus feet with pearl-like nails. And our Rishi had the darshan of Perumal. Bhagavan gave his sakshatkara to Narayana Muni. And when Narayana Muni beheld Bhagavan with all his grandeur, we can't even imagine what a devotee would undergo, isn't it? The joy, the enthusiasm, the eagerness to praise him, all that was running through our Narayana Muni's heart. Immediately Narayana Muni looked upon Bhagavan and started praising him. Sura sura namapi durlabham tvam pashyami devam purato mamaivam aho krutartosmi ramanivasa katam karishyami samarchanam te. He's saying, Bhagavan, you are very rare. Even devas, even the great Gandharvas and all those celestial beings cannot behold thee. But you are standing as Akshigocharam to me. I am seeing you just face to face. Kritartosmi, my entire life has been made fruitful by your darshanam. Ramanivasa, Bhagavan along with our mother, Sri Devi Tayar gave him the darshanam. Katam karishyami samarchanam te. Now he has a problem. Narayana Muni is saying, Bhagavan, how am I going to worship you? How am I going to adore you? How am I going to do the archanam to you? And now I am baffled as to how I am going to adore you and do archanam to you. And this entire process of his expressing his inability to do the worship of Perumal becomes the worship of Nirgunam. You see, our Bhagavan in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita says that of the two bhaktas who are Saguna bhaktas and Nirguna bhaktas find it very difficult to worship me. Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam. Klesho adhikatarastesham. Klesha, the difficulty is very high when it comes to those devotees who want to worship me in the formless aspect. Bhagavan is in the same token taking the form and name for the anugraha of the devotees. We saw that in the earlier satsangs. The beauty with our Venkatesha Vaibhavam, as graced by our Sri Sri Anna, is he prepares us with very sound philosophical background so that we can relish the fine aspects of bhakti and the bhavas of a bhakta beautifully. And indeed, we are fortunate to continuously follow it, isn't it? So here he is saying, Katam karishyami samarchanam te. How will I ever do archana to you? And our Bhagavan is now looking at all this with tremendous joy and tremendous maybe divine amusement. And Bhagavan himself has said that to our Arjuna, that klesho adhikadarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkam dehavadbir avapyate. To worship the nameless, formless, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient Bhagavan is going to be difficult. No? People can just sit down and say, how am I going to worship you? And that's how formless worship becomes, completely baffled. And this entire process of a devotee getting baffled as to how will I adore you becomes an adoration in itself. And Bhagavan is going to answer all that by showing a path of worshipping Bhagavan in form of the Vaikanasa Agama Vidhi. So he is saying, Bhagavan, if I have to do archana, if I have to do puja, first I need to do sankalpana, Bhagavat Agnya, Srimad Narayana Pirtyartham, Pujam Karishye, whatever. But then he is saying, I have a problem. What is the problem? Sankalpa hetum manasopi atitam dhyayami aham tvam katamadi devam sarvatra samvyaptam ajam cha vishnoho avahayishyami katam kvachitvam. Beautiful. He is saying, if I have to do a sankalpa that I am going to do the puja, how will I do sankalpa? Why? Sankalpa hetum manasopi. This whole sankalpa is done with the mind, isn't it? Atitam, manasopi atitam. But real divinity is something which is transcending the mind. Real divinity cannot be caught by the mind. Real divinity is the cause for the mind to work. A wonderful Upanishad called Kena Upanishad tells us this quandary, divine quandary, that how can a mind capture something which actually activates the mind to work? Instead of trying to understand how will I catch him with my mind, the real spiritual process is what is that which makes my mind think, instead of how can I think of him with my mind. You see, vicharam. Yenahur manomatam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. So here he is saying the sankalpa's basis is in the mind, but you are beyond mind. Mano atitam, manaso api atitam, dhyayamyaham tvam katamadi devam. How can I do sankalpa? How can I do dhyana? Because in the ceremonial worship, after sankalpa, after this, sankalpa, you say dhyayami. How will I do dhyana? How will I do the dhyana of Bhagavan when he is beyond the mind, when he is the cause of the mind? How can the mind, the effect of Bhagavan, catch the cause? How can a spark from a glowing fire, forest fire, which is expanding infinitely, how can a spark come and illuminate a forest fire? You see? Not possible, na? So here our Narayana Muni is asking that sankalpa hetu is manas, and dhyayami, how can I do dhyanam when Bhagavan is the one who makes the mind think? How can the mind think of Bhagavan? You see, I don't know how to do dhyana, I don't know how to do sankalpa. Sarvatra samvyaptam ajam cha vishnuho. You are ajaha, you are never born, you are never created, you always exist, and you actually pervade everything like this wonderful sambrani smoke out here. Sarvatra samvyaptam ajam. And avahayishyami katam kvachicha. You have to say, na, avahayami. Generally when you do puja, you have to call and establish him in a place. He's saying, avahayami. How can I do that? He's asking. Katam karishyami. Katam avagayishyami, katam kvachitam. How can I call you and make you sit in a place when you are omnipresent? How can I make an omnipresent divinity to come and say, come and sit here? So if you are saying avahayami, please come and sit in this small place where I have made for you, it means that he is not there before, and then he has to come and sit in a place where he is not there. Na? When he is sarva vyapaha, when he is present everywhere, always, how can I ever call him and say avahayami? How can I do avahana? That's the important part of puja. So, he is baffled. Adhara bhutasya tavasanam cha samarpayishyami katam hyananta katam pradasyami vishuddha murtehe padam tadargyam cha mahabhishekam. Now the question is even more beautiful. You are the Adhara Bhuta of everything. Yata etat chidatmakam. You see? So he is the Adharam. Yasmin idam, yadascha idam, yena idam, yaidam swayam. The Bhagavan is the Adhara Bhuta. He is the substratum. He is on which the whole world exists. If you want to paint a small picture of Perumal on a wall, first of all, the wall is the one which holds the picture. Na? It is the Adharam, and the picture is on the wall. Without the wall, can we paint a picture? Likewise, he is saying, you are the Adhara Bhuta everywhere. Then how can I put an Adhara for you? How can I put a small substratum called an Asanam and say, Bhagavan, Asanam samarpayami? How can I give you Asanam? When you are the Adhara, when you are the substratum, you are the one which on which everything subsists. How can I put an Adharam for you called Asanam? And when I am sitting on an Asanam, Asanam is Adharam, and I am sitting on an Adharam, isn't it? I am sitting on a substratum, I am sitting on a foundation, I am sitting on a stage. But how can I do that? Why? Because you are the Adhara Bhuta of everything. Baffled. How will I ever do your puja? Okay. After that, I have to give Padhyam Samarpayami, na? Vishuddha Murtehe, you are the purity itself. How can I say I am giving you a small spoonful of water? No, generally we say Argyam, Padhyam, Achamaniyam. Argyam is welcoming, saying please welcome, Argyam. And then it is given to the hand. Padhyam is given to the feet. And Achamaniyam is given for sipping. And he is saying, how can I do Padhyam? How can I wash your feet when you are purity itself? And when the water which emanates from your feet is the purifier of all the three worlds. Tatpada salilam yata Vasudeva kata prashnaha purushan trin punatihi vaktaram pruchakam srotrune tatpada salilam yata. That water which came from our Srinivasa Perumal's feet has become Gangaji. It is purifying all the three worlds. To that Perumal, how can I offer a Padhyam? How can I say here is a spoonful of water to purify your feet? Baffled. You see, expressing the inability to adore you becomes in a way an adoration. Na? I hope you are catching the lovely bhava here. Then he goes on to say, Akasha rupasya digambarasya vastram katam te picha dharayami prakriti aliptasya tavapi gandham katam pralimpami cha sarvagandha. Hey Sarvagandha, our Upanishads are saying that he is Sarvagandha. All the Gandha, all these wonderful fragrances, all emanates from him. He is the wonderful fragrance. And Akasa Shariram Brahma, says our Upanishad. That Bhagavan is Akasha Rupa. And Akasha means it's spreading infinitely. Sarva Vyapatvam, it is everywhere. When Akasha is everywhere, now he is asking, Digambarasya, all the 10 directions are your clothes. And for you who is like omnipresent everywhere, how can I offer Vastram? How can I offer clothes to you, Bhagavan? I have a problem. How will I adore you? After Sakshatkara, he is saying all this. And then, he is somebody which Prakriti cannot touch. Nature cannot touch him. He is beyond nature, Prakritam. And when Bhagavan is Aprakritam, this Muni is asking, how can I, offer some sandal paste to you so that it can stick on you? When Prakriti itself can't stick on you, how can I make a sandal paste stick on you? And Sarvagandha, you are the very epitome of all fragrances. How can I say Gandham Samarpayami to you? How is it possible for me to do that? He is asking. Then he is saying, okay, after that Deepam comes na. Swayam prakashasya tapapi deepam pradarshayishyami katam mukunda kalaswarupasya cha sarva bhoktuhu dasyami naivedyam aham katam te. Bhagavan, you are Swayam Prakasham and you are the one who gives light to even sun, the Agni and the lightning, Kutoyam Agni. His light is what is reflected in the sun, is reflected in the stars, it is reflected in lightning. What to talk about Agni? And those lights cannot illuminate Swayam Prakasa, self-effulgent Lord of consciousness. How can I take a small little ghee lamp and say, Deepam, how can I do Deepam to somebody who is Swayam Prakasam? How can I illuminate sun? How can I illuminate you because you are Swayam Prakasam, self-effulgent? How can I show Deepam to you, Bhagavan? How will I ever adore you? And he goes on to say, Kalaswarupasya sarva bhoktuhu. As Kala, Bhagavan eats everything. Ulagamunda Peruvaya. All the three worlds with all the people in that is taken in during Pralayam. During the time of deluge, during the time of destruction, he takes the entire existence inside him. Existence as we know it, or universe as we know it inside him. For him, a small pot, for one as Kala Swarupa who eats everything, how can I ever offer a small pot of prasadam naivedyam? How can I ever give that? Bhagavan, how will I ever adore you? Naivedyam aham katam te dasyami. How can I give Naivedyam to you? Sarvatra samvyapta sadaika roopam katam namasyami vibhinna deshe anama roopam agunam cha vacham agocharam naumi katam tatatvam. Bhagavanne sarvatra samvyapta sadaika roopam. You are always, you exist everywhere. You penetrate the entire universe. There is not a place where you are not. So if I have to do namaskaram, it means I have to do the namaskaram or prostration in the direction where you are, away from the direction where you are not. Bhagavan, you are sarvavyapi. How can I ever find a direction where you are not? How can I ever do namaskaram? So when we do these pujas, there are these various aspects of the puja, isn't it? So the various aspects of the puja, he is saying, how can I do to you? Because you are nameless, formless, beyond name, beyond form, beyond space, beyond time, beyond any specific vyakti. How can I ever adore you, Bhagavan? That's the bafflement. Anama Roopam. You are without name, nameless, formless, transcending names, transcending forms, transcending all qualities. And yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. That words cannot capture you when you are beyond names, beyond forms, beyond qualities, and words cannot capture you because you are anirdeshyam. You can't be described. Naumi katam tatatvam. How can I ever do Nama Sankirtana? Because you are beyond names. Either you should have a name, I can call that name, but you are beyond names, or you should have a quality. And I can do a small bhajan with that quality as its main purport. Or you should have done some karma. You see, you are beyond all that. At least I can describe you. You are beyond description. What will I do? How can I do? Now me. Like our Brahmaji did, na? Now me dhyate. So how can I do now me? How can I ever, praise you? How can I do that? Because you are beyond names, forms, all the descriptions. Tasmat visrijya akila sadhanani maunena tishtami sada nirihaha yadichasitvam rachitam cha pujam puja vidim te vadalokanatha. Prabhu, hence I am going to stop all the sadhanas I know. I am going to bundle it up. Gatari bandhkar. I am going to throw it away because I can't do anything. And eschewing all the various sadhana, maunena, absolute silence. What can I do? Silence in body, silence in vak, silence in mind. Tishtam, just standing, baffled, what to do? Sada nirihaha. You are beyond all that, so I can't do anything at all now. Yad ichchasi tvam rachitam cha puja. If you want me to adore you, Bhagavan, I am now totally, I have clueless about how to adore you. You yourself tell me how to adore you. You yourself tell me, now teach me. You yourself show me the path of how to adore you. So puja vidhinte vada. Your puja vidhi. You please yourself initiate me into how to worship you. Because why? Lokanatha, I want to do puja. Right? And Bhagavan beautifully is going to reply now. Now Bhagavan starts speaking with lovely pearl-like teeth shining through his red lips, with love in his eyes, looking at the bafflement with a trifle amusement. Our Bhagavan starts speaking. Bhutva tadaham manasopyatito vishami bhaktasya manasvayam hi vyaptopi sarvatra kripavashena sanidhyamevam hi karomi murtyam. See how beautifully Bhagavan speaks. For those who says, why should I go to temple, why should I worship a form when Bhagavan is beyond for name and form? Bhagavan says, even though I am beyond mind, I am beyond thoughts, thoughts cannot touch me, mind cannot reach me. I actually touch, I actually enter the mind of a bhakta. Swayam hi, I do that myself. He cannot come to me, I come to you. That's why our Swamiji in a Madhura Geetam says, Ittunai Duram Vandade Perumpadu. For me to come to you, Perumal, there are a lot of obstacles. For you to come to me, there are no obstacles. He is not meaning physical distance, obviously. He is talking about you need to descend to my mind so that I can experience you. My mind cannot come close to you. It's a very significant Madhura Geetam, a prayer which only Bhaktas understand. So he is saying that I come and touch the Bhakta's mind. Of course, the mind cannot touch me, but I am omnipotent. I can touch the mind of a Bhakta. When our Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was questioned by a very beautiful soul called Mahendranath Guptaji, called M, where he says Bhagavan is omniscient, he is omnipresent, and I think it's absolute tomfoolhardy to actually do worship of forms. He followed a sect which was not very much favorable towards worshipping a form. They thought it is constraining Bhagavan. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa immediately raised his tone to control the ego of that disciple, and he said, you know, Bhagavan is omniscient, he knows everything. He is all-knowing. So does Bhagavan not know that his devotee is actually worshipping only his form and not some clay or not some mixture of paints? So you don't have to worry about it. Bhagavan will take care of the devotees. Ego was cut the first time when our M met our Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. This is the principle of bhakti, and this is the principle of worship, where the mind cannot reach him, words cannot reach him, but he can touch the mind, he can touch the words, you see. And that's the beauty of Bhagavan's kripa. Vyaptopi sarvatra kripa vashena sanidhyamevam hi karomi murtyam. Even though I am omnipresent, out of kripa vashena, out of my tremendous compassion and grace and mercy, I show my presence in a lovely murti, in Archavatara, in the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. Aishwarya Srinivasa is everywhere, but he chose to show his presence in this lovely sanctum sanctorum of our Namadwaar, and he is going to make himself a lovely temple in that classical style very soon. He is not going to stay there in a hall. He is going to find a abode for himself, with all of us, of course, pulling that wonderful chariot of seva, of building a lovely temple for our Perumal. Anyway, so he is saying, out of this kripa vashena, I am actually omnipresent, of course, but out of my kripa, I show my presence specially in that temple. And when I read all your feedback after you had the darshan, many of you wrote to me, and in that you said, we were all bewitched by this lovely smile of our Perumal in our Namadwaar. So yes, he has shown himself, his presence. Adharabhutopi vasami pite bhaktarpite kurchamaye api krishtaha sada vishuddhopi cha kamayeham panchamrita snanamaham tatargyam. Adharabhuta, yes, I am the substratum, I am the adharam for everything, adharam for the world, adharam for you, adharam for me, for every living being and non-living being. In spite of that, when a bhakta puts a small dried grass, kusha grass, and say, avahayami, Bhagavan immediately comes and stands about. Why? I feel very happy when a bhakta says, please come. And I show my presence on the kurcha. Even though I am ever pure, eternally pure, I always desire for patram pushpam palam toyam. I desire this wonderful Panchamrita Snanam. I desire the Argyam. I desire the Padyam. I desire the Achamaniyam from a devotee. That Panchamritam is not important. Coming from a devotee. When a devotee gives me even a drop of water, I actually consider it as the entire world for me. It's world for me. It's not something insignificant for me. Why? Love. Patram cha pushpam cha palam cha toyam ashnami dattam priya bhakti purvam swayam prakashopi dhrita pradipam pashyami bhaktena samarpitam chet. Even if a bhakta gives patram pushpam phalam toyam, a small leaf, tulasi leaf, or a small flower, a rose or a lotus, or a fruit, apple or orange, or just water, because it is Priya Bhakti Purvam, he is giving out of love, he is giving out of his tremendous love. That love is what I want to relish in form of the offering. So, I actually eat it with tremendous joy, and even though I am self-effulgent, When you give me a grantha pradeepa, when you show me a ghee lamp, I see it. I see my bhakta in the light of a ghee lamp. See the beauty. You get what I am saying? When we are offering the ghee lamp, Bhagavan is self-effulgent, and Bhagavan says, out of Shraddha you are showing a ghee lamp, na? And when you are taking this little wick, tiri, and you are putting a little ghee there and chanting Hare Rama, you are making the ghee lamp with the bhava that this is for Perumal, this is for Perumal. Perumal says, I see the wonderful ghee lamp and the bhakta showing the ghee lamp with tremendous joy. And Bhagavan says, Anama rupo picha nama rupam swayam grihitva purato vasami shrunomi bhaktasya cha nama ghanam stutim cha tat prema vashikritokam. Even though I am beyond names and I am beyond forms, I take a name, I take a form, I take this wonderful form, Bhagavan says. I take the wonderful name Aishwarya Srinivasa. Why? I always stay in midst of my devotees. I pine for their darshan. I want them to come and see me. And why? I listen to all my bhaktas' bhajans, stuti. Why? Tat prema vashikrutoham. I am completely pulled, attracted. At times I am subservient. I become even the servant of my true devotees because they attract me with prema. Like how a chaste wife attracts a chaste husband by her pure love and brings him under control. Likewise, devotees bring even the Lord of the universe under their control, not because they want to control Bhagavan. Love makes Bhagavan controlled by devotees, even though devotees don't seek any control. That is the beauty of the relationship between devotee and Bhagavan. Mamaiva chittad vikhana munindraha pura avirasin mama pujanaya puja vidirme gadito mayaiva tasmai prapannaya visharadaya. Bhagavan says, Hare Narayana Muni, in your own ancestral lineage, there was this great Rishi called Vikanasa Rishi. I myself revealed how to do the worship which is very pleasing to me, to him. So, you actually get that wonderful method of worship, Agama Shastra, and follow that, and I will be very, very happy. I will be very happy with that mode of worship. Swatapavitre vikanakule tvam jatosi punyer bahuvir mamarcham videhi vaikanasa sastramargam alambya sanidhyam aham karishye. Swatapavit, you yourself are from a very pure, you are from a pure ancestral lineage which is Vikanasa's kulam, and so you shall follow your own ancestors' way of worshipping me, and you shall be given this wonderful marga of Vaikanasha Shastra, and you follow this, and then I shall constantly be present amongst you. I shall bless you with my presence. Yash shastram utsrujya yatha matirme pujam karoti shramaye venunam grikhnami naivam abhakta dattam shastram pramanam himamarchanasya. And you should follow the Shastra, words of an Acharya is a Shastra, our scriptures are a Shastra. So, when Bhagavad Pada defines what Shraddha is Shastra Vakyeshu Vishwasam and Guru Vakyeshu Vishwasam. So, without that Shastra, if people just do whatever they want, we have seen people who just do Tantondri. Tantondri means they just they have their own fantasies of what worship is. They just do it and say Bhagavan accepts it. It's only the heart which matters. Shastra Mutsrujya. If we just do whatever we want, then it is Shrama Eva. It is just efforts without any fruits. So, unless there is love in the heart of my devotees, I don't take anything from them at all. And Shastram Pramanam Him Amarchanasya. It is Shastra which is the authority for how do we do Archana, how do we do worship. So, the Shastra should be Vaikanasa Shastra, Panjaratra or Bhagavata Dharma Shastra. Bhagavan himself has revealed all the three. Bhagavan reveals Bhagavata Dharma Shastra through Uddhava, our Premika Sampradayam, our Sampradayam which we follow is been revealed by Bhagavan as to how to do the worship with Kirtanam. You see, that's one more path. And it is shown in detail in the 11th canto, where Bhagavan himself tells that to Uddhava, just like how our Perumal tells the path to this Venkatesha Muni's lineage, sage called Narayana Muni. Narayano Vipravaro Murarehe Agnyam Vahan Sadaram Eva Murdna Vaikana Soktena Pathaiva Pujam Chakara Nityam Purushottamasya. The moment our Narayana Muni heard our Perumal guiding this way, he became extremely devoted, filled with joy, filled with devotion, tears rolling from his eyes. He immediately took that Agnya, he took the order of his Bhagavan himself, and then started doing the worship in the path of Vaikanasa Agama Shastra, and Nityam he did that Shastra to that Purushottama, which is our beloved Aishwarya Srinivasa Perumal. Tasyaiva namna dvijapungavasya Narayanadrim pravadanti santaha Narayano yatra sada prasanno bhudeva devo jagatam hitaya. And that is the reason why this wonderful Narayana Rishi, Dvijapungavasya, this great Vedic Pandit, greatest of all Vedic Pandit, the supreme Vedic Pandit who was able to actually have the Sakshatkara of Perumal, talk to Perumal, his name was Narayana, isn't it? So the hill where he actually had the Sakshatkara of Perumal, the hill where he saw Perumal out of his wonderful penance, that hill was also named as Narayanadri. And there, our Narayana is Sada Prasanna, and he is there Prasanna for the Hitam, for the well-being of all the worlds, for the well-being of Vedas, for the well-being of Bhagavatas, for the well-being of Vedic Pandits. Bhagavan Sata Prasannaha in this wonderful Narayanadri. Lovely story about Narayanadri. Na? Each of the hill Bhagavan has shown himself. So the 7 hills is permeated with the presence of Perumal, all the 7 hills. So we saw Narayanadri. Very soon we are going to see the next hill, and we will see that hill in the next week to come. So we have covered 2 out of 7. Vrishabhadri and Narayanadri is over. We have 5 more. We will see one by one by the grace of our Srinivasa Perumal. Sarvatra Govindanama Sankirtanam Govinda Govinda Sadguru Maharaj ki Jai. Rama Ramana Govinda Govinda. Radhe Radhe.